All right. So change your words, change your mind. Today we're going to be learning some lessons in fostering grit through a growth mindset. So to start our training today, I want to share a little story with you all. And hopefully we'll get our slides working here. I apologize for any technical difficulties we might be having today. All right. Let's see if we get that. So while this is loading, I'll go ahead and share my story with you. So growing up, I remember spending a lot of time with my grandfather up in Boise, Idaho. And in the evenings, we would watch old Western movies. And one of my favorite movies that we would watch was with Johnny Cash from True Grit. Now, for those of you that haven't seen this film, True Grit is the story about a hired gun named Tom Chaney who murdered the father of a 14-year-old girl named Maddie Ross. Now, Maddie wanted to seek vengeance, seeks the help of U.S. Marshal Rooster Cogburn, who was a man known for true grit. Now, this was the first time I've ever encountered the word grit. I never knew what grit really meant. To me, grit was looking like this, being a rough, tough cowboy with a little spit in your eye and just being a real tough dude. And I never really understood what grit truly meant until I attended a conference several years ago in Florida where I got to listen to Angela Duckworth, who is really the leading expert on grit. So I'm going to close this screen real quick. I apologize. Okay, so what is grit? You know that grit is passion and perseverance for long-term goals. That grit is that quality that allows an individual to work hard and maintain focus, not just for weeks or months, but for years. It's really that thing that we feel inside of ourselves, like, okay, I'm going to dig deep, I'm going to get this done. But how do we build grit? How do we build grit in kids? And how do we build grit within ourselves? Now, the answer to this is we really don't know. But although Angela Duckworth herself says she doesn't know how definitively how to encourage grit in young people, she's hopeful it can be taught. And currently the best idea so far in developing grit is something called growth mindset that comes from Angela Duckworth. That comes from Carol Dweck from Stanford University. I apologize, we're having a couple little glitches here. So let's talk about growth mindset. So what I would like you all to do right now is in the chat, I want you to write down 1 to 2 words of what you think growth mindset means to you, and what does a fixed mindset mean? So go ahead and take a few minutes, and we'll start with the first one. In just a couple seconds, and write down your thoughts on what you think a growth mindset means to you. So go ahead and write down your thoughts into the chat box. Now I'm hearing some echoing, so if we can remind everybody to mute their microphones, that would be great.
I just don't really like string that much.
Okay, so I'm hearing getting some great ideas here. So I'm going to read a few. One says open-minded. Another says the belief that one can and will learn new skills. Absolutely. Desire and willingness to learn and change. That's another great one. Not deterred by failure. Absolutely. Open to opportunities. You know, a lot of open-mindedness here. This is great. Uh, Flexibility, willing to be open-minded and learn from others. Yes, absolutely. I like this one here. It says a fixed mindset is being stubborn in your own ways, and growth mindset is having the mindset to allow that allows you to expand your thinking process. Absolutely. These are all, great thoughts. So something I want to share here really quick is this is a little word cloud I created with a group of participants up in Logan, and this is their answers. And as we can see, it's very similar to what you guys have put. That growth mindset really is that belief that our mind is a muscle that we're able to change, that we're able to grow through practice and through effort. And that it takes all these characteristics to really have a growth mindset. You have to be positive, you have to have perseverance and that want and that confidence, but that optimism to believe that you can. And even if you don't understand something right now, that's the thing to remember is I might not understand this concept yet, but we'll get there. And that word yet is so important for us to remember with growth mindset. So now let's switch to fixed mindset. So if I can have you guys do the exact same thing, write down a few thoughts on what you think a fixed mindset is, because I like to hear some of your thoughts. So one answer we have is fixed mindset is unwillingness to see things from different perspectives. Absolutely, it's very closed-minded. Another one says stubborn, unwillingness to progress. Stubborn, stuck in our own ways. And these are all true, absolutely. So as they keep coming in, I'm going to share some additional thoughts. So discouragement is one of the biggest things that comes from having a fixed mindset. To me, in my opinion, fixed mindset is really connected to our emotions and that discouragement. Oftentimes we hear people say, I'm not good at math. I'm never going to be able to get this problem. And it's because, we feel discouraged, especially for me, when I struggled with math in school, it's because I saw my peers, they all understood. They were getting the concept, and I felt alone. Like, why am I the only one not getting this? And that was a fixed mindset for me because of that emotional attachment. I never thought I could get over a fixed mindset. So that's exactly what a fixed mindset is. It's a fixed trait. How people feel when having a fixed mindset. So thank you all so much for sharing these thoughts. But something that we need to remember when looking at both a growth and a fixed mindset is where are we at? Where are we personally with these traits? And oftentimes we feel like it's one or the other, and that's not true. That we're all on a spectrum here, that we can be on different points, that we might be able to have a growth mindset. Let's use the example of math again, that we might have a growth mindset in some areas of math, but others we might think like, oh, I can never do long division or algebraic equations. I will always have a fixed mindset, but like addition and simple multiplication, oh, I got that. I have a growth mindset there. I can do this. I know I can work on it. So now I want to hear some of your thoughts. So what I would like you to do right now is either you can write things down or just reflect for a moment to yourselves on a time that you've experienced a growth mindset and a time that you've experienced a fixed mindset. And if you'd like to write down your thoughts into the chat, we'd love to hear from you. If you happen to be on a video call or calling in on the phone and would like to share some thoughts, please just unmute your microphone and we'd love to hear some comments. So go ahead and again, take a few minutes to think about sometimes you've experienced both of these type of mindsets. So while everybody is writing down their thoughts, I think it would be okay for me, real quick, to share one of my experiences. Then I want to hear some of yours. So for me, when I was 12 years old, I had the experience to go to a scout camp. I went to Camp Bartlett up in Idaho, and I had to do the swim check. Now the swim check is a 100-yard swim, and then there's three swimming abilities that you can end up in after how well you did in the swim check. So a swimmer pass the test to the whole 100 yards, and they can swim in any of the big areas that were just really cool. A beginner had to stay in water about waist deep, and a non-swimmer is pretty much stuck in ankle deep water. And it was very discouraging to see those people having to sit in the non-swimmer area. And I ended up being one of them. So when I jumped in the water, I was terrified, couldn't swim, and they had to pull me out, and I had a non-swimmer buddy tag. And for years after that, I tried doing the test again, and I had a fixed mindset. I thought there's no way that there's leeches and monsters in that water. That there's no way I could swim that 100 yards. And then I had a leader. His name was Guy Parker. He did something for me that forever has changed my life. He just asked me a simple question. He said, "Chaz, can I swim it with you?" And I said, "Yes." That would be so helpful. So, and by this time we were doing the swim check again. The water was freezing. I was up at Camp Lowell up in Wyoming, and that water is glacier fed, so it was so cold. And I remember Guy already being in the water, probably showing signs of hypothermia already. And he coached me through it. And he said, "You can do this. Put your arms out of the water more." And was teaching me strokes. And I kept swimming, like Finding Nemo. I'm like, just keep swimming, just keep swimming. I kept going, I kept digging deep, found that grit within inside of me, that, perseverance, and I did it. I passed my swim check and got my swimmer buddy tag, and it was amazing. But the story doesn't end there, because 2 years after that, I returned back to Camp Bartlett as a BSA lifeguard. I was now a lifeguard. And then later on in Bear Lake, I was an assistant waterfront director. Because of that change in my mindset, coming from a fixed mindset of not being able to swim, and then changing from someone being willing to help me and coach me, that I had a growth mindset, then I was able in return to help many other people in that same situation that I was, thinking, "Oh, I can't swim," standing at the edge of the dock, so scared and petrified of the water, was able to help promote growth mindset for them. And that's so important for us to remember, as wherever we're at on the spectrum, that we can change, that we can grow. So, if it's okay, I see a comment here from Brent, and I see that he is, I can see him as well. Brent, would you mind sharing your story on your experience with a growth and fixed mindset?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I grew up, like, how do I say this? I was a pretty nerdy kid. I was a pretty, like, picked on kid and that sort of thing. And I had the same experience with you, not necessarily with swimming, but like, I had a really great, just really great mentors in my life that really encouraged me and led me through who I was. one of them was a youth pastor at our church. And the funny thing was, I ended up going to school and getting my bachelor's and master's in Christian school, and I ended up becoming a youth pastor. So I worked in church for a long time, and I look back on that, and I think the reason I did that is because of what my youth pastor did for me. And so I did that for 15 years. And then 3 years ago, I all of a sudden completely switched my whole career path. And I moved from working specifically in a church to working at the YCC Family Crisis Center in domestic violence. And I mean, it was a completely different world for me. I worked with students my whole life, which kind of gave me an edge to be able to work with kids because I run the kids program at the YCC. But to be able to start to try to understand what domestic violence is and the cycle of abuse and the whole psychological thing that is involved in that. I mean, I had to go to, training after training to try to wrap my mind around what that is, because I had no experience whatsoever in domestic violence before that, and try to wrap my mind around how trauma affects kids too, and be able to work with these kids. And so that was a completely different skill, like a completely different skill set that I had to learn. And it was very challenging. It's still challenging. But to be able to get to the point I am today took a lot of work, and a lot of encouragement by my coworkers and patience with me. And so, which has been wonderful. And the cool thing is that I'm learning through that experience as a kid that I still remember what I felt like, to now I can kind of relate to these kids a lot and really try to teach them grit as far as the trauma that they've been through. How do they build that resilience back? And so I love this stuff. This is great.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that experience, Brent. I love how it kind of came back to some of the descriptions that we came up with for growth mindset, that open-mindedness and, being optimistic, and that really, shine through in your story. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
If I can pick on one of our OST specialists, I can see in the chat here from Eleanor. She wrote about having a fixed mindset, trying to learn piano, and the feelings of, I'm not good at this, I don't have the talent for this, are constant. Eleanor, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit more about this experience, because I think this is great to share, especially could relate to kids when trying skills, whether it be musical or sports related or academic. I think this is a great example to learn from. So Eleanor, would you mind sharing a little bit more about your experience?
Sure. I'll turn on the video too. So hi everyone, I'm Eleanor. I have a degree in music. So with that, there's a lot of classes that you have to take, and one of them was piano. And I failed piano 3 times in college. And so with my other instruments, clarinet is my main one. I learned it easily as a kid. It was something I loved. I practiced it all the time, and it came naturally to me. And piano does not. And so now I don't use it as much, and I didn't realize it till this past Sunday. I had to play piano for church, and I was sitting there realizing that my that fear was still there, and that feeling that I'm not good enough to do this is what was causing me to actually shake and causing me to miss notes, which is silly because I know how to do it and I know what I'm doing. I did pass piano finally, but just that mindset of this isn't something I'm good at is a really hard thing to shake.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that, Eleanor. That was a wonderful story. Would anybody else like to share, before we go on to our to the next slide, would anybody else like to share an experience they've had with either having a growth mindset or having to overcome a fixed, or maybe even still having a fixed mindset? Would anybody else like to share? And feel free to unmute your microphone and introduce yourself. Okay. Well, if we, oh, do I have somebody? Thought I heard a microphone. I'm muting.
Hi, that's
Hello.
Maxine. How are you guys? Can you
Yeah,
hear me?
how you doing, Maxine? Yep, we can hear you.
It's all quiet. Okay, I'll jump in. I'll have fun. I'll participate.
Absolutely.
Okay, so one way that I have found that I've struggled with growth mindset is like with my schoolwork. When I start a project, it seems really daunting and overwhelming for me. So I am a natural procrastinator, I found, which is not good, right? So I have one way that I've found that I have tried to develop a positive mindset for handling tasks that are really large is I break them into smaller sections. And so when I get one section done, my confidence level is increased because of like one part's down, right? And so then I'm ready for the next part. And then I keep on doing that because I break it into smaller sections. And then pretty soon my super large task is now complete, and I feel better because I didn't tackle it all at one chomp, right? Because that was too big for me. So I had to break it apart. And so that's one way I felt, because I do get intimidated by large projects just because it's like, oh no, where do I start? So that's one technique that I found that has helped me. I find a good spot to start, and then it helps me break big assignments into parts and doing it bit by bit by bit.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that, Maxine. And I think, what you talked about, looking at things in a big picture, looking at all at once really can have us experience a fixed mindset. It's really difficult. Like if we look at everything all at once, it's like, wow, this is overwhelming. But breaking it bit by bit, breaking things down is a great way to promote growth mindset. So thank you so much for sharing that, Maxine. So we're going to go ahead and go to the next slide, if it'll work for me. I'm going to close the chat here and see if it'll. Oh no, you gotta love technical difficulties. Let's try this again. All right, here we go. So why do mindsets matter? Why is it so important to realize if we are having a growth or a fixed mindset? When we think about it, a person's mindset really sets the stage for our performance or learning goals. That, when we think about a student with a performance goal might be worried about looking smart all the time or having to be the best all the time. In sports, I remember when I was wrestling, there was a time where like I was undefeated, and that pressure and that performance goal was really hard. And as soon as I lost a match, I had that fixed mindset. I'm like, oh, I'm no longer as good as I was, and that's not the point. And a lot of times we do see students, avoid challenging work, avoiding things that are hard because they're worried about those performance goals. I'm going to see if it'll work better over here. I'm having issues. Oh, there we go. So then on the other hand, a student with a learning goal will pursue interesting and challenging tasks in order to learn more. So when we think about it, those who believe their abilities are malleable are more likely to embrace challenges and persist despite failure. And that's a concept that is so important for us as educators to teach the kids that we're working with, is that we are not focused on a finished or polished product, but more the process of what they're learning, the process of what they're doing, engaging in, whether it be, in academics or an enrichment activity, we want them to remember about their process. So you can see here with this image, this model here is really neat that shows how the cognitive and effective and behavioral features are linked to one's belief about their intelligence. So this graphic here demonstrates the research and how different mindsets lead to different patterns of behavior. And it's really interesting. So in this link here, and we'll be sharing the slides with you after so that you can have this resource. But this is from mindsetworks.com. And you can take this self-assessment to see where you're at on the spectrum, where if you have a growth or fixed mindset, and they'll provide some additional resources to help either continue to promote that growth mindset for you, or how we can, work on changing some of those mental blocks with having a fixed mindset. And also, we know again that growth mindset drives motivation and achievement, and that's where, developing grit comes into having that passion for what we do to have this focus. So again, going back to praising process and skills over the product and just the individual. At times it is so easy for us when we're working with kids, when we see them doing something, whether it be again a homework problem or they're working on a project, it's so easy for us to come up and say, "Good job, wow, you are so smart, look at you." Even though these are great comments, that we want to show that we care about the child, but we want to show that we care about their process. And so when promoting growth mindset and with the feedback that we're giving kids, it's important, and the activities that we're doing with kids, it's important for us to remember how are we helping them develop these critical thinking skills. With critical thinking skills, it helps them, again, engage more in that process, how we're asking questions, help them make observations with the problem they're working on, maybe make predictions of what they think their outcome is going to be on their roller coaster project that they might be making. So it's important for us, and when we're given that feedback, we can say something like, "Wow, what a creative way of solving the problem," or "You did so good to collaborate with your partner here. Great work." We're both acknowledging their accomplishment, but their process and collaboration and the effort they put in. So remembering these critical thinking skills is, really key to promoting that mindset. So now we're going to do a little activity. So we're going to look at some feedback, and what I want you guys to do is try to point out the underlying message of the feedback and how it could be changed to promote a growth mindset. So you can either, when we ask for answers, I'd like you to either put your answer in the chat, or you're welcome to unmute your microphone and share your thoughts as well. So let's go ahead and look at our first feedback statement. Not everyone or not everybody is good at math. Just do your best. So what do you think the underlying message of this feedback is? What do you think we could do to change this feedback to promote growth mindset? So go ahead and think for a minute and share your answers in the chat, or unmute your mic if you like to share out loud.
All right, Chaz, we have some great stuff coming in from the chat. Taylor mentioned you're not good at math, but try anyway. Ben, this is communicating that it is okay to give up. You're passively saying you're not good at math. The more I practice and seek help at math, I can be successful.
Again, these are all great comments, and you guys are right on. When we say not everybody's good at math, what that we're promoting with that fixed mindset here is we're putting them in a category. Then that category is like, it's okay. It's okay that you're not good at math, even though that is okay. It is okay not to be good at math, but we don't want them to stay there. And just say, do your best as well. This is good encouragement, but how do we measure, their best, because they might already be doing their best and thinking, oh, my best isn't enough. I can't ever do this. Um, so I want to see
And
that. Oh, please go ahead.
I know with we working at the school and working with after school kids, I always tell them that's why we practice.
Yeah.
And I says, you see us practice things, that's why we have to keep practicing so that we do get better. And they're not the only ones that have to do that.
Yeah.
That I also have to.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that, Lori. And what I'm seeing here in the chat as well is, that word practice. We practice because we are learning to improve our skills. And go back again, remembering that word yet. It's like, you may not be good at math yet, but let's put in some more practice. And then we can ask a question that says, well, tell me about what you've been doing so far. Tell me about your process. So we're getting on their level to see where they're at. So great comments. I'm seeing a lot of good information on the chat. So let's go ahead and head to our second example. You finished your roller coaster project really quickly. Good job. You are really smart. What do you think the underlying message of this feedback is? And how do you think we can change this statement to promote growth mindset? So I'll read it one more time. You finished your roller coaster project really quickly. Good job. You are really smart. What is the underlying message? So I see a comment here that says, because you finished your project quickly, you must be smart. Then, underlying could be faster. Yeah. So what we're looking at here, the underlying message, and that how this is promoting a fixed mindset is, again, that categorizing of you are really smart. Right now we are plateauing this child's level of intelligence, saying you're really smart. This is the level, you reached it. There's nowhere else to go. How can you grow from this? So you acknowledging, again, it's important for us to remember not just to say, oh, you're really smart, even though we might feel like this is a really nice compliment to give a kid. It is promoting that fixed mindset. How can they, grow from this? So I'm going to look in the chat here to see if anybody's, how we can change it. So from Taylor said, you put in a ton of effort into this. Great job. Stay focused and working so hard. Your hard work has paid off. This is actually really good. We're again acknowledging their process of your hard work has paid off. Way to go. But how can we, again, encourage more of that growth mindset? A question or a way we can change this feedback. It's like, wow, I noticed that you finished your roller coaster project really quickly. Well, that's great work. Tell me about your process. Tell me how you were able to work through this. If we were to add an additional challenge, what do you think you can add to your roller coaster? So having that type of language as well. Again, having those follow-up questions. And that's what we're going to talk about next. But thank you all so much for, actively participating. I love the thoughts that you're all sharing. This is wonderful. I love this quote from Albert Einstein. He said, if I had an hour to solve a problem and my life depended on the solution, I would spend the first 55 minutes determining the proper question to ask. For once I know the proper question, I could solve the problem in less than 5 minutes. I've felt like this many times in my life. I've been working on a problem for a long time, and somebody's like, well, if you try it this way, I'm like, well, no, I never even thought about that. So with promoting that growth mindset, it's important for us to know about purposeful questioning and have us have experience in asking good open-ended questions and asking questions that will help the kids that we're working with their problem solving. So let's look at this. I want to ask, what can be achieved by asking good questions? Well, when asking good questions, that we can recall prior knowledge or experiences they might have had in this situation. And we can promote comprehension, hopefully have them remember what they're learning, and then to build those critical thinking skills. So what makes a good question? Good questions need to be open-ended, they need to be specific, and if appropriate, to have them be continuous, have those follow-up questions, and then can help guide their thinking of, how they can problem solve. But we need to remember when asking a good question that there needs to be some wait time. We live in a day and age where it's so easy for us to have instant gratification where like, okay, I want this now, I want this now. Oh, this video is taking so long to load. But for us asking questions to kids, it is crucial for us to remember that wait time. It's like, okay, I'm gonna give them time to think. And sometimes some kids take longer to think of the answer or their response. So we need to think about what makes these good questions, and then when we're asking these questions, to wait for the response. So now we're going to do the exercise again. So we're going to put in the chat this question, and I want you to think, is this a good question? Why or why not? And how could we change it to be a little bit better? So the question is, how's it going? So let's think about it. Is this a good question? Why or why not? And how could we change it to be a little bit better? Or if it needs to be changed. So we have here, how was your day? That's great. It's a little more specific, but still open-ended where we can get a response. But if we get an answer, and if we ask the child a question, how was your day? We might get a response that's like, oh, it was good, or it was okay. But if we want a little bit more, it's like, oh, how so? Tell me more. So think about how we can, I'm seeing some answers here, is how we can make it more specific. How's what going? How's your project going? I'm noticing that you're on your roller coaster you're working on right now. You're working on your loop-de-loop. How's that going? Do you feel like it is going well? Is it not going well? What can you change? These are examples of those follow-up questions you can ask. And I hear one said, no, it's too open-ended. People are going to give a generic answer. A better question, what did you learn today? Absolutely, that is a great example. But it is important for us to remember sometimes these questions are okay, that they're good to ask. But if we're focused on skill building or engaging them in a process, we would want to be a little more specific. So great answers, love your participation on this. So let's look at this question. Did it work? Let's think about this. Is this a good question? Why or why not? And how could we change this question to be better? Did it work? So I see here, what was your favorite thing about today? How do you feel it went? Did you accomplish the goal? Yes, I really like that one. Did you accomplish the goal? Goes back to the specific thing that they're working on, that they're learning. You're most likely going to get a yes or no answer from that. Yeah, that's really what's going to come from this question. Did it work? Yes or no? But an engaging question, we want to get a little bit more. So again, great responses. So we're going to go and move on to our next slide, if that's okay. So as students begin to work on learning objectives, that growth-minded language guides and motivates them to ensure that they remain persistent, resilient, and focus on the process of learning. So these language frames that we're looking at here, we need to recognize these for when we're engaging students in the following situations. Our first one is when we have a student struggle despite strong effort. What kind of response can we give them? We can give them a response like, we're going to see if it'll click here. I don't know why we're having so many problems with the clicker today. All right, take a minute to load. So when they struggle despite strong effort, we can ask, when you think you can't do it, remind yourself that you can't do it yet. This is a great response, going back to that yet. And then when we have a child struggle and they need help with strategies, we can give feedback like, let's write a plan for practice and or learning. You know, what's your plan? You know, again, this goes back to their process. Then when they are making progress, we can use an example like, hey, that's a tough problem that you've been working on for a while. What strategies are you using? Again, this goes back to, you know, the process of what they're doing. And when they succeed with strong effort, it's important for us to, again, acknowledge their work here and say, I am very proud of you for not giving up. And look what you have shown for it. You know, going back to that process, you know, with the critical thinking skills, that process is important for them to acknowledge their successes from it too. And that promotes that growth mindset, because we'll never have a growth mindset unless we can know that we can do something or that we've seen some success from it. And when they succeed easily without any effort, we can give a comment or some feedback. It's great that you have that down. Now we need to find something a bit more challenging so you can grow. So Holly in the chat for us has provided a resource from MindWorks. You know, this is a great resource that comes from Carol Dweck on recognizing these situations, but gives you additional examples of feedback that you can use. So this leads us to our next activity. So what we're going to do, I'm going to be splitting everyone into groups. So you're going to be put into a different breakout room. Sorry, I'm going to go back one. I don't know why it's not working well. So you're going to each be given a different statement like this one that you see on the screen. And so what you're going to do is come up with a feedback statement that will help promote growth mindset to this particular child. So I'm going to give you guys about, 5-ish minutes, give or take, to talk as a group to come up with a good feedback statement. So on the top of your screen, once you get into a breakout room, you'll see that you're in breakout room 1. If you're in breakout room 1, you will have the first scenario, and we'll make sure that you can see it here on the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and put us all into breakout rooms. And then we'll come back in a few minutes.
Whenever you're ready, chat or via the mic, jump in with some ideas you have.
And was everyone able to see their scenario for group 1?
Yeah, Chaz, it's in the chat box showing up still.
Okay.
So if you check your chat box, you should see it.
Awesome, perfect. Thank you, Eleanor.
I like Angela's idea. She suggested maybe ask if we can look at the project together. That's great.
And an idea, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, an idea that I thought of was look for something in the project, like the colors used, and point out the things that, just something about the project to focus on that, something positive about the project.
I like that. That's great. Focusing on something positive. I think this is also a good opportunity maybe to, I feel like we were doing that in the beginning with some of the sharing that people were doing, relating it back to, I have something that's been hard for me as well, but I kept trying. And now, I'm a little.
All right, do we got breakout room 2 connected okay? Were you guys able to see your question? Okay, so feel free to either, again, put some things in the chat here, but you're all in your own little room, so I'd love for you guys to start some conversations of what type of feedback that you would give this particular student.
I really think I'd ask him like that what works question, he can't get his design to work, what has worked the best so far, where did you see, the most progress, and then kind of break it down from there and like, all right, so that's where it's progressing, where is it stuck, what's not working, and then trying to work it out with him, realize that we can break this down and we can figure out what's going right and what's going wrong.
Absolutely. I really like that. And, again, it's going back to their process, we're engaging them in the process. And I think we're on the right track here, but how can we think about what specific language or what specific type of feedback can we give them as well? I think you're right on of, how we should approach this. But, if you think of, specific type of questions, what type of things could we say? But I love that. I think you're right on it. Spot on. I'm going to join our next group. And Kristen, it looks like you have something you're going to share, so I'll let you take it away.
Okay. I actually really like what you said, Ben, and really focusing in on, the specific part of what he would like to work on, and really what's not working so that he can have that success. I think when you're starting up, really focusing in the fact that he did keep working. And I noticed that even though it wasn't working very well at the beginning, that you kept working hard on this throughout the entire time, and you kept trying new designs. Let's take this and see, like what Ben was saying, what part of this was
the program that I work with does usually deal with homework and how to basically achieve difficult tasks, mainly homework. One thing that I always like to do is say, hey, I always like to start by asking like what was difficult and what was easy for them when it comes to an assignment. So saying something like, oh, is there something that you liked about this assignment that just really clicked in your head? Like some kids are really good at like graphing, while other kids really like dealing with equations rather than graphs. So like focusing on what their strengths are leads to stronger development towards those strengths, which ends up making the entire assignment easier. So it's things like that where it's like helping them locate their strengths as opposed to like say, hey, you did that really fast.
I also like to have them mentor other kids that are struggling. You know, give them the opportunity to show some strategies.
That's a great idea. This is Maxine. Peer to peer communication is really important for students, especially for ELL students, because they get like support, and then people, the other students, their peers, are able to communicate the example or communicate the activity in a different way to like show additional support.
Yeah, I really like the idea of everyone sharing like the final product at the end and like comparing and contrasting the processes. I know we've kind of spoken about that a little bit, but it's so crazy how much kids learn from each other when they're looking at each other's products and the way they do things.
I agree. I think that having that whole session for them to come back together and share also gives them another example of restating what they've learned in their own words. And so that also helps them again. It's a good strategy.
These are all great ideas. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. There was also a couple things that ended up in the chat. There was one from Lisbeth. It says, wow, nice job. And then the student's name. Can you walk me through how you designed it and why you specifically designed it in this way? Is there anything more you wish to improve on this rocket model? Hey, Maxine. And then Megan Shaw, having them identify those strengths and share with others is so valuable. And then from Amy, what I do with my group is walk through all the process together and talk about what we like the most and what we can change about what we didn't like. So yes, thank you all. If anybody has any final thoughts, now's the time to share it. If not, Hiram, thank you again for sharing with our main group when we go back.
No
and I
sweat.
think we are being sent back here soon. Perfect. Okay.
Okay, so we should all be coming back to the main session now. I hope you had some great conversations and were able to come up with a growth mindset statement to help with each of these different scenarios. Love to hear from everybody, but we are short on time. So I'm going to ask, I've identified a few of the UAN staff that were in each of the breakout sessions. So I'm going to ask Holly, would you mind giving us a recap of what you guys discussed in group one?
Sure. We had a lot of really great ideas that were kind of tossed around, but I think some of the main points that I think were takeaways for the group that I was in were thinking about, and first off, so to recap our scenario, thanks. A girl makes one quick attempt to make a car, fails, and says she's given up. I think our group made some extremely important points about it's more than just the end goal, right? We want to be supportive of the kids throughout this process. There's always things that we can point out along the way, trying to focus on things besides just like the car itself. Maybe it could be the car's color, and really trying to get kids to think more about it being a process. Maybe we're going to take a break, but we're going to come back to it in a little while. And really just supporting them through that was kind of one of our main takeaways.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that, Holly. You know, that is great. Let's go ahead and hear from group two. So if I can have Ben, I saw that you were of group two. Would you mind being the spokesperson for your group?
Yeah, that's just fine. So we really talked about the fact that a few things that I got out of it is we need to celebrate the fact that he was trying, that that he hasn't stopped. I think that's such a good thing. And then bringing him to the point where we can say something to the fact of, hey, you worked on it really hard. What did you learn? Like, where is it working? Where is your design working? Where does it seem to not be working? So you can point out the fact that he did work and that he did get something out of it, instead of seeing, oh, I did all of this work and everything's just a failure. Like, oh, it's like, this is a process and we learned both good things and we also learned things that didn't work. Like, there's like these things come together. And then we pointed out a few things, like you could build, I really like the spider graph, to help them dissect what they learned. Say, all right, here's what we're trying to build, say a rocket, and we have these different parts of the rocket, and this part of my rocket is really holding up, but this part is not, like, so they can see exactly where they're growing, and where they're having trouble.
Dan, thank you so much for sharing, and I think you shared a really important message here. That's okay for them to know that we can fail, that this is a safe space to, make mistakes, and it's okay to know it's not working, and, but acknowledge their process of what they've been able to do so far, and then ask them a questions of, well, where can we go from here? Help them develop a plan so when they come work on it the next day or the next week, they have a plan in place to say, okay, this is where I was. Now I know where I can keep going from here. So that was great. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ben. Okay, let's look at group 3. And Angel, would you mind giving a recap for your group?
Yeah, we actually have a designated recapper, my man Hiram.
Oh, you got one. Perfect.
Yep.
Hello.
Yeah, I heard a little bit of Hiram, so I can't wait for him to share with the whole group.
All right. So what we started with as like a good starting point with our scenario, which was essentially someone successfully put together a rocket and it asked about our input, and I think what we all agreed on is like the first thing we should do is acknowledge the hard work that she put in, so like saying, hey, great job, you did this thing, and then well, more specific than that, and then asking her what she wanted to do to improve, to see where she would like to like asking her what she liked about the project, and sorry, I thought I was muted. Asking what she liked about the project and what she would like to develop further if she were to do it again.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Hiram. And, you're exactly right. We again want to acknowledge what they've done and their process. And, Farron's like, so tell me how you were able to do this so quickly. What was your thought process here? And then give them an additional challenge. What would you do differently if you were to, if you wanted to go further, if you want your model rocket to fly higher and farther, what changes do you think you would make to your design? So again, we're not discrediting the work that she's done already, but we just want to know, okay, this is simple enough for her. How can we challenge, challenge her growth? So thank you all for sharing and participating in the activity. I know we're, out of time, but I just want to share a few closing thoughts really quick. So I want to go back to grit. Talk about that passion and perseverance. So where does grit matter? Grit matters in so many aspects of our lives. We want kids to be confident in their future successes. And we need to think of as educators and after school providers, what do we have control of? So here are some things that Angela Duckworth shared about how we can help kids build inner strength and, make them more gritty. So first is, pursue what interests you. We want to make sure that activities that we're providing for kids, that they're interested in. We can see that STEM, sports, and other activities can be a great vessel to grow grit because kids naturally like it. They like doing these things. So we need to help make sure that what we're providing interests them, that we can not just have it be an interest, but develop into a passion, something that drives them. And for me, that was sports. Sports was my outlet. And then practice, practice, practice. I love what Angela Duckworth talked about in her book. It says it's not just how you get to Carnegie Hall, because if it's just practice just to do it, we lose the passion. So we gotta make sure we love what we're doing, but to put in the effort for what we're trying to accomplish. Then find purpose. Find purpose of what we're doing. For me, of sports is really overcoming challenges. I did martial arts for a long time, and it took me about 7 years to get my black belt. But my purpose, it helped me find balance and peace in my life, where I would get angry so often, that it helped me find that purpose of like, hey, I can calm down, I can get through these challenging situations. And then we need to have hope. And I love what she says here again. It says, it's not wishing upon a star here, pal. Have hope because you are going, that you're going to make it happen. So the last little thought I want to share here is just from a lesson I learned from my wrestling coach, called Taking Out the Trash. He introduced me to a film called The Peaceful Warrior, which is a story about Dan Millman. Dan Millman was an amazing gymnast, and that he was looking to go to the Olympics, compete in the Olympic trials. And right before the trials were going to take place, he was in a tragic motorcycle accident where he shattered his leg and had a steel rod put in. He was told that he could barely even walk again, that he would never compete, that his event was doing the rings. And in the film, he had a mentor named Socrates. And Socrates taught him about being in the moment. So I want to read this quote. It said, the trash is the only thing that keeps you from the only thing that matters, this moment, here and now. When you truly are in the here and now, you'll be amazed at what you can do and how well you can do it. So when promoting a growth mindset and helping kids develop grit in their lives, it's important for us to focus on what we have control of, being in the here and now. Because when we're focused on the past has our attention. If we might be thinking, oh, I didn't do so well in this race, I didn't do so well in my race last time, or I couldn't get this concept in my math problem, doing my math problems last time, the past now has our focus. So we need to make sure we can teach kids to throw out the trash. We don't have control of the past. And same thing for the future, that we can't control the future, but we can control what we have in this moment, the particular skill that we're working on. So when my coach in wrestling, before every match, our little cheer we would do, he would just ask us, where are you? And we'd say here. He said, what time is it? And we say now. He said, what are you this moment? Nothing else mattered, that we were focused on the here and now. So I just wanted to share this little thought with you when we're giving feedback to our kids and trying to promote that growth mindset. How can we make sure that we're getting rid of all of their distractions and helping them be in the here and now? So in closing, I'd like you to reflect on our experiences that we've had today and think about how you can incorporate a growth mindset in your own life, but also how can you make sure this, the philosophy of having a growth mindset is implemented in your programs, and that the kids are aware of that this is what they're working on. This is what they're doing. And so I want to thank you all so much for your time today. So we'll be sure to share all the slides and everything with you. So my information, feel free to contact me at chazp@utahafterschool.org, or you can send me a text as well. Love to hear from you. We had a great group of participants. I appreciate all your input. We also have a survey that we are going to be putting in the chat box. Please feel free to fill this out so you can get credit for your training. And also we'd love to get some feedback and love to continue these conversations with you and anything else that we can do to provide resources and help you in your programs. So thank you so much for joining our first virtual training. I know there were some bugs and some issues, but thank you for bearing with us. Please join us on Thursday. We're going to have Angel Gomez and Erica Andino. They're going to be presenting on Thursday. And we're hoping to have a few more of these webinars continue to come out. So appreciate you again. I'll stay here for a few minutes to answer any additional questions and hope to see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks, Chaz.
Thanks, everyone. Great to see you.